Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for the final review as part of Skylanders Week, which means that on this fine Monday evening, we will be talking about Skylanders Imaginators. And note how I said Monday evening. This was originally supposed to come out Saturday evening, but unfortunately, my life just happened to get in the way of that. And on top of all that, this isn't the conclusion of Skylanders Week because we still have a few Supercharger Noir Lock episodes to go, and the only reason why I'm leaving it until this week to conclude the series is because each episode takes around 2 days to export, and I've been having exporting issues on top of that, so naturally I haven't been able to get the episodes prepared in time, which is why the final 3 episodes will all be dropping this final week, mind you, so let's get pumped for the finale of the Skylanders Supercharger Noir Lock as premiering on Sunday. But for now, we have the 4th game developed by Toys for Bob for the Skylanders franchise to speak about. Well, the 6th game chronologically, but in terms of its development staff, yes, this was the 4th game that Toys for Bob helmed. And it's clear at this point that most of these developers were tired of working on the series and just slapped out the fastest product they could to capitalise on Toys to Life, which in October of 2016 was really starting to die out, so this was their last push effort for a nifty paycheck. So let's talk about it, starting with a sad excuse for a story this game has. It's about mind magic, which the Ancients created to create Skylands. That's right, the Ancients created creation. Anyways, we've now taken control of this mind magic as a Portal Master in order to build our own Skylanders from creation crystals known as Imaginators. Of course, Chaos wants this power for himself to create the ultimate Doomlander, to defeat the Skylanders and rule over Skylands. Just your typical, traditional, formulaic and boring Skylander story, to be frank. The entire plot is told within the opening of the game. The first cutscene tells you everything you need to know for this story moving forward, meaning that levels barely even tie together due to the lack of a string within the story tethering these levels together. So naturally things just happen without rhyme or reason. There is such a lack of logic throughout this script that it really frustrates me. The next thing you know, you're playing the next level just because of the inconvenience of the nature. The story is so basic and offers no progression that you have no motivation whatsoever to play through it. So naturally that leads to poor pacing as the game seems to move at a snail's pace, and it doesn't help that most of the senseis have really slow walking speeds and most levels have wide open areas that are barren and full with nothing to explore. Collectibles aren't really all that clever either, with simple backtracking or a quick searching in the area that looks slightly off camera or a puzzle room. You can find collectibles in this game, no problem whatsoever. And the slow-paced senseis are really the only characters you find yourself playing as, because all of the older Skylanders are incredibly nerfed, meaning you're at a huge disadvantage when playing as them, and that's no fun. This was a shallow, money-motivated choice, because they really wanted to sell you on these new figures which are so overpowering in comparison to the older characters. Why play as Sunburn and die in 5 seconds when you can go out, buy Barbella and defeat an enemy in 3 hits? That's not to say the senseis aren't fun, in fact it's quite the opposite. The senseis provide us with the best roster to date from the entirety of the Skylanders franchise. There are 33 senseis total, meaning you aren't bombarded by an abundance of figures and feel intimidated by the simplest thought of getting them all, because it's really not that much more expensive than Spyro's Adventure. So here is quantity, much less, allowing them to really focus on quality this time around. You see, the controls are very responsive and fluent in this game, meaning senseis have been given more complex upgrade chambers with attacks that chain and flow together, which with much nicer pacing even, creativity and chaos, to ultimately grant you incredible, satisfying power all at the helm of your fingertips. It's all of these in combination that make all of the gameplay of the senseis all so fun and distinctive. And creating this chaotic chain of destruction can be so much fun, as the gameplay styles really vary from character to character. No 2 senseis play the same, and some even teach you lessons like Ambush, where the more patient you are, for more damage you will deal, since in the process of staying still you will charge up your sword to inflict more damage. Their animations are also really smooth and nice to watch, and the figurine quality of the senseis themselves is magnificent. They all have really great textures and are very nice to pick up and hold. Great detail to admire and complex molds which really bring out their personality and gameplay style. So you can tell what a sensei is all about by a simple look of their figurine, and it's awesome. They also all have really over-the-top weaponry, which is creative and phenomenally detailed to fit in with different battle classes. You have things like double squid pistols, chainsaws, and a massive dragon bazooka. They're all so cool and well thought through. It's clear that the most attention and love was put into these senseis to make the designs and gameplay the best they could possibly be. Never have I ever regretted buying a sensei, because even the ones with weaker designs have incredibly fun movesets that really motivate you to buy the characters, such as the previously mentioned Barbella, whose design sucks, but she is an absolute beast in game who annihilates everything in her path. It's a shame that, like most sensei, she walks at 2 miles per hour though. If the level design was a little more clustered, and wide open arenas are great, that's for sure, for combat sakes, but long corridors where there is nothing to do but spend 3 years walking forward, they aren't so great when they are much more wide open and longer in terms of just how far you need to walk and how slow you do all that walking. But moving on to the level design, these levels, they aren't great. I've already mentioned about the lame collectible hiding spots. Like, seriously, I found near enough everything first time round, but the settings and themes of the levels themselves are generic and lack creativity. There are town levels, beach levels, mine levels, fortress levels. The list of generic settings just goes on and on. They also copy previous mechanics from Darklight Crypt and Wilkin Village with a world switching mechanic, which isn't executed with such creativity and cleverness this time round. The puzzles are basic in the level, and so the entire thing just feels like a watered down experience of those other greater levels that came before it, which isn't even that well designed, but mostly because of, you guessed it, long corridors. Yep, you can't escape them even in Soda Festival or whatever the name of the level is. Fizzland, that's it. It's so unmemorable that I can't even be bothered to remember its name, mind you. Most levels have similar structures and executions to them. Sometimes rooms you enter feel the same as other rooms from a few levels ago. This lack of creativity and effort put into the levels makes them feel lazy and very unmemorable, because they simply just mesh together. There are only 10 of them in total, so the game is 6 hours long at best, with lazy filler content to bloat out the runtime, since cake missions are introduced after the 8th chapter, and they are so dull, repetitive, and uninspired. It gets tedious after 5 minutes. I hate that section. I hate it so much. But the levels did get the most important thing right. They are fun. At least when in combat they are, because the senseis are such a blast to play with, and the platforming is decent as well. So overall this game does have some mindless fun to be had, some of the most mindless fun from the entirety of the franchise, go as far to say, so long as your brain is turned off. And there are 2 levels in particular which are fantastic. The Golden Arcade, as you can see before you, and Abandoned Amusement Park are both really creative and fun levels, the Golden Arcade of which provides some nice fresh twists on the gameplay loop, because it's full of neat little mini-games to take your mind off of constant combat, though it can still be slow-paced with long corridors that simply don't need to be there. The graphics in this game are fine, around Trap Team level, meaning Swap Force, which came out 3 years prior to this, looks better. So whilst the graphics certainly aren't terrible or offensive, they certainly are a disappointment still, since the colours do have that nice pop to them and can be vibrant and contrasting, but the textures and animations are basic, at least in terms of the background details. I've already told you about how great the senseis look, but outside of the senseis there is very little attention to detail. It's not nearly as impressive as how good Supercharged looked, and it's a damn shame really. It's such a huge downgrade, because they were cutting huge corners with this game. Assets were copy and pasted lazily into these levels, the evidence being that in Superchargers, chicken can be shrunk or grown in Captain Cluck's Chicken HQ, and for objects specifically that can be shrunk and grown even, are identified by a purple aura around the object. Well, the assets they copy and pasted from that level still have that purple aura, despite that mechanic no longer being available in this game. They couldn't even put in the effort to remove that aura as they pressed Ctrl-Z, Ctrl-V. Doesn't take much effort to code that, my friends. Post-game content is atrocious, even more so than Superchargers, because now, after you beat the main game, you have quests from the brain, and that is it. Sure, there are elemental realms too, but they can only be opened by senseis of the same element, leading to the same scummy trick as Trap Team, where you must buy senseis specifically to be granted access to things, as an offense to avid collectors who've invested in the franchise for years now, only so they can try to cash in a quick buck. It's pathetic, and all of these realms are incredibly uninspired too. They are all elemental themed, which makes the settings generic and familiar. Since Spyro's Adventure also themed levels around elements, this might not have been seen as a problem, but if they took far more creative liberties in Spyro's Adventure and had at least a little more creativity and distinguishability between the levels, but here they are clear, cookie-cutter, basic elemental themes. The Earth realm has rocks and mining in it. The Fire realm has a volcano in it. It's just such a basic exploration of the element. Even light and dark themes have been done before, because for Sunscraper Spyro Midnight Museum, which are both far superior experiences to the light and the dark realms. I suppose the hub is fine. Actually, it's more than fine. I love the MAP. Your movement speed is increased so you can get around it quickly. Thank heavens for that. It seems as though a normal walking speed made the testers get bored of the MAP far too quickly, so they begged for programmers to increase the movement speed within the map, or at least that would be my guess. Anyways, it's structured, how it's built up, and the creativity put into hiding its secrets are all thought through and very distinctive in comparison to other hub worlds of the Skylanders franchise. And they also made it convenient enough to upgrade Skylanders at any time. Persephone does not have to be present, and that is such a great convenience and time save. I appreciate that small touch. So yes, thus far this game has got an incredible hub and unparalleled playable characters. So let's move on to whatever lazy excuse for the video game they have made up next, and that starts off with the music once again, as we don't see the return of Lorne Bouth, meaning there is next to no original music. I've once again used Giants to avoid copyright, because it seems as though just about every single one of these tracks is either a remix of a pre-existing track, or a royalty track that they simply bought to slop on into the game. And the themes are so lazily slapped in too, even. They only just barely match up with the setting of the level at best. They don't act as immersive pieces that feel a part of the Skylanders world and increase the pacing anymore. They're simply there so you don't play in silence, though I do like the noise when you enter into one of the flying crystal thingies. The loud booms of the tracks makes you feel weightless and helps with the pacing. You saw one of the little flying crystal thingies earlier in the Golden Arcade, actually. And that almost makes up for the rest of the lack in the music department. Almost. But when it comes to said flying crystal thingies, I'm not sure if they even have an official name, so I'm just going to stick with what I'm calling them now. You have almost no control over them, since you can move straight, and attempting to move any other direction is so janky and slow, it is not fun to control. I also have a mad dislike for the tone of this game, because there isn't one. This game has no style, and the delivery of the dialogue is stale and sounds like these voice actors have fallen asleep at their booths. Characters have no chemistry with one another and are not entertaining to watch due to NPCs not being the Skylanders, rather than familiar faces like Flynn or Tessa. I don't want to interact with a non-playable version of a Skylander, because that's what we have instead of these familiar faces in the form of Flynn or Tessa, and I don't want to interact with Skylanders as NPCs simply because of the fact that I can play as them instead. And it's not like their personalities are particularly well captured either. The only reason the Skylanders NPCs in this game is to serve as a promotion for Skylanders Academy, the Netflix original Skylanders TV show. So that's right, this game wasn't only for largest possible last minute cash grab, but also nothing short of a 6-hour long promotion for a TV show. And Skylanders, I love individual Skylanders personalities, but really they don't have enough personality to them. They don't have enough substance to be expanded into an entire NPC's character worth. I'd rather just play as them and interact with our more familiar faces. I cannot emphasize this enough. But how's the gimmick, I hear you asking? Well, I love the character creation system even. It's so customizable. There are combinations in the 26-digit range, yes, beyond trillions. You can naturally never come up with the same Imaginator as someone else. You will have different parts that speak to you and different colour palettes to truly make your creation feel like your own. That degree of customization is admirable. You truly do create your own Skylanders, and that's so much fun. Sometimes I can spend hours just finalising my Imaginator, and there is even a randomizer button. It randomizes your Imaginator and can make it look rather goofy, which is the best comedic tone in the entirety of this game. Yep, those random Imaginators are the best and only laughs I got out of this entire experience. So in conclusion, to give us all a final last-ditch effort and end off the Skylanders franchise on such a low note is a huge disappointment. And the developers chose this lazy, cut-corner style game, delivering nothing more than a promotion for an upcoming TV show and the largest cash grab the Skylanders franchise has ever seen, with every scummy money-making trick in the books to cash in on the franchise one last time before completely clearing it off. With the lack of style and polish of this game, only 20% of the levels are actually unique and creative. It's slow-paced with an incredibly weak story that can't even tie its own threads together, and lame NPCs with no charm nor comedic value. It's a pathetic attempt at making a competent Skylanders game. I demand more from my favourite gaming franchise, and Toys for Bob felt as though 5 years of loyalty was worth this to them. I still think it's a good game. Glitches are few and far between, and it might be mindless fun, but it's still fun all the same. And there is no denying how great the character creation system is, no matter how cynical you are. So yes, I still think this is a good game. Not a great one, and I will stick to that. But now with this review coming to an end, I want to thank you all so much for watching. And I will be seeing you soon for those final few episodes of the Skylanders Supercharger Noir Lock. And until that moment arises, peace!